Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. We're going to be discussing 2020 fantasy football quarterbacks in this episode. Joined once again by Kenny Ortiz at FantasyJabber, the vice president of Minnesota, and still a newly married man. Kenny, how are you, and how's married life? It's been about a month, right?
Yeah, today is day 30. I figured out I mastered it. So I'm going to write some books this summer on how to be a good husband. I'm pretty much a marriage expert. I think you only have to do it for 30 days to be an expert, right? Isn't that what I heard?
Yeah, I guess so. I've been married for 2 years now. It's our anniversary week.
Nice.
So I have to read up on what you have to say because you have so much experience now.
You're welcome. Hey, by the way, I have to say something. I don't think I've ever told you this. So it's 2 years ago. I was at your wedding, and I realized I'm a crappy friend. I never got you a wedding present. 2 years. Okay, but I got it. But it's been on my list to do. I'm not even exaggerating. It's been on my list to do for 2 years. I have searched for a wedding present. I didn't want to just give you like a gift card. I wanted to get you like something cool, like a jersey or something that was like, football related. And I've probably spent, I'm not exaggerating, at least 10 different times I have spent 1 full minute thinking about it. That's a collective 10 minutes over 2 years, which is a lot of time based on other things I've thought about in my life. So it's still on my list of things to do. So one day I'm going to get you a really cool, unique present. Don't worry.
Well, this kind of reminds me of the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where Larry David shows up to give people a wedding present. Was it like 18 months after their wedding, and they won't accept it because they say the limit is a year. Well, I have no limit. So if you want to give me a present for my wedding on our 30th anniversary, 28 years from now, I'll take it. So I look forward to your gift.
I thought I heard that whole 1 year thing before, but I wasn't sure like how staunch is that? Like, I don't know. I feel like if someone wants to give me a present 5 years later, I'll take it.
Oh yeah. I'll accept the gift anytime. I don't care. Like, it seems silly not to. I don't know. Anyway, let's delve into our 2020 fantasy quarterback rankings. Before we do, if you're watching YouTube, please hit subscribe. That would mean a lot to us. So we're approaching 1,000 subscribers. Not a huge number compared to other channels, but we're a new channel, so it's like a cool milestone for us. Also, if you want to share this link to anyone who likes football, that would be appreciated as well. All right, let's get into it, and I'm sure we'll have some disagreements. Do you have any honorable mentions before we begin?
Yeah, so I have my top 16, so I'll just rattle off 11 to 16 real quick, and they're all pretty much in the same category. Like, it's kind of hard to rank them, but to me, it's Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, Big Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady. Like, that's my 11 through 16, and quite frankly, you could put those almost in any order. I think you can make a case for any one of those guys being closer to the top 10. I thought about Baker Mayfield being in my top 10, but I just don't know that I trust that coaching staff just yet, or that offensive line. I know they've addressed the line. Maybe it'll be way better. Maybe he'll be really great. I'm just not so sure yet. And then Big Ben is also a big wild card to me. Like, I'm not sure what to make of Big Ben. If he's healthy and he's the same guy, he's likely a top 10 fantasy guy potentially. But it's hard to know. So that's kind of my 11 through 16 honorable mention rankings.
All right, we have some overlaps. I didn't include Big Ben in my top 16. I'm just concerned about his arm. He's an old player. It's been 2 years since we've seen him have a good game. So I don't know if I can trust him, but I definitely agree with you that if he's 100% healthy with his supporting cast and offensive line, he could be a top 10 quarterback for sure. I heard you say Matt Ryan, I believe, and Baker Mayfield as honorable mentions. I have them there as well. I also have Joe Burrow as an honorable mention. I think he can have a good year. I think their offensive line will be better with Jonah Williams, and they're going to get AJ Green back, so he's going to have a better supporting cast. I think did you say Matthew Stafford?
Matthew Stafford's not in my list. He'd be below that for me.
Okay. He's another wild card like Roethlisberger. The thing is, like, he's younger, so I think he has a better chance of being healthy. But Stafford has a problem. he has a troublesome back, so we'll see if he can be healthy. If he is, I think with Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, T.J. Hawkinson, I think he could do well this year. So those are some of my honorable mentions, and I think I have a couple more, but I suspect they might be in your top 10. So
Dak Prescott's my honorable mention too. I completely forgot that one. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, he's one of my honorable mentions as well. He's number 12 for me. So.
So I made my top 10, and I basically I actually have 7 other guys. I just didn't read my list properly. I've got 7 other guys that are all kind of, in my mind, they're tied for, they're tied for 11th in my thought process.
Yeah. All right.
7-way tie for 11th place.
Nice. Very, very nice. All right. Let's get to your top 10. Who's number 10?
Number 10 for me is Mr. Dan Jones from the New York Giants. I can't believe he's this high on my list. I can't believe it. I wasn't a believer. I'm still not really a believer on him in like real football. Like he wouldn't make my top 16, top 17 of real football quarterbacks. I don't think he's in a top 10 or top half of the league. But from a fantasy perspective, I think I like him a lot. I think I'm going to like that system. I think I like what they've done around him. Obviously, we love Saquon Barkley. Gosh, he's so freaking good. I've been rewatching the 2019 season. I've watched through the first 7 weeks at this point. So trying to get through the whole season by July. And Dan Jones really has moments where he's really, really good. Then he's got moments where he's really, really bad as well. I mean, he's got moments where his read is terrible. But you got to imagine, a rookie quarterback, he's going to have moments where he's really, really bad at reading the defense. Like that's expected for a rookie. So I'm baking in a potential step forward in that regard. If he can, by my basic calculations, kind of just rough estimates, I think if he could take away half of the bad plays from last year, he's easily a top 12 fantasy quarterback. And with a little bit of luck, this guy is in the top 10. So I think right now where I'd be drafting him above my honorable mention list of the guys I just mentioned.
Okay. I have Jones a little bit higher. I'll discuss him in a bit.
Nice.
No surprise I have Daniel Jones slightly higher. My number 10 is Tom Brady. I think he was in your honorable mentions. So Brady is not – I don't think he's going to get the yardage that Jameis Winston had last year. Winston had more than 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. Brady could get the 30 touchdowns for sure, but I think the yardage won't be there because, first of all, Winston had the yardage because he would throw interceptions. He put his team in a hole, and he'd have to throw his way out of a deficit. Brady's not going to do that. And second, Tampa's defense is going to be a lot better this year. I love this. Love the moves they made recently in the past couple of years in the defense. So I suspect that the Buccaneers will have the lead in most games, so Brady won't have to throw a lot. Still, though, he has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. We'll see if Keyshawn Vaughn is a good rookie. If Keyshawn Vaughn pans out, Brady's going to have so many weapons. So it's hard not to like him. I'm not in love with him because like I said, I don't think he's going to have to throw that much. But Brady for me is definitely in the top 10.
Nice.
Okay. Who's your number 9?
My number 9 is Mr. Josh Allen. And I think Josh Allen has a legit chance to be higher on this list. Mostly because of the running there. I mean, the capability of this guy in the red zone to get touchdowns is high. It would not be out of the realm of possibility for Josh Allen to walk away from this season after having had, like, let's say, I don't know, could he get 8 rushing touchdowns in the red zone? If you add that to even, stats slightly above average, this guy's going to be a top 9, top 8 type fantasy quarterback this year. And it looks like I don't know that people are baking that in. I don't think people realize how good he is running the ball, especially in the red zone. So I think he might come at a slight discount coming this fall.
Yeah, I'm not too far away with Josh Allen. He's one of the honorable mentions I didn't mention because I figured you might have him in the top 10 because I didn't hear you say him. He's number 11 for me. So between 9 and 11, it's not a big difference. I like Tom Brady a little bit more, and I guess one other guy. We'll find out who that is. My number 9 is Daniel Jones. So like I said, I like him a little bit more than you do. You could get the Giants at 145-1 odds to win the Super Bowl at Bookmaker, which is unbelievable. So I'll take the 100 to win 14,500. It sounds good to me. I think the Giants make a big leap this year, as most teams do with second-year quarterbacks. And what you were saying about Daniel Jones was absolutely correct. Like, he had some great moments. He had some terrible moments too, but he was a rookie. He was playing behind an offensive line that has some injuries, and now they added Andrew Thomas to the mix. Saquon Barkley was injured for most of the year last year, even though he played. He was banged up. So you're going to have a healthy Barkley. You're going to have a better offensive line, and you're going to have Daniel Jones with more experience and a better coaching staff. So I think he's going to make a big leap. I like Daniel Jones, and I also like Darius Slayton. He's one of my top sleeper receivers. So I'm pretty bullish on the Giants this year. So who is your number 8?
My number 8 is the old man, Drew Brees. Drew Brees is great. He's first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best quarterbacks ever. I think for my money, probably the most accurate pure passer ever. Maybe that I've ever seen. Maybe Dan Marino's in the conversation. Maybe Peyton Manning's in the conversation. But man, Drew Brees is so good. I just foresee this team taking a step back all around. We've seen them be mediocre for long stretches under Sean Payton. After they won the Super Bowl, they had several seasons where they were very mediocre. And they've had several seasons where they've actually been very good, and they haven't had great fantasy stats. So I think this is a year where that team takes a step back. They're a little more rush heavy, and I think that ends up impacting Drew Brees' numbers a little bit. And I don't think Drew Brees has the Tom Brady ability. Do I think Drew Brees is going to be as good till 45? I don't. I'm way more bullish on Tom Brady being himself for 2 more years. I think Drew Brees likely falls down, and as I think about it, I think I might even have him too high.
Interesting. I have him a little bit higher. I'll get some right now. I have him number 7. I think that with Emmanuel Sanders, I think there's less of a chance that Brees declines. And the way he plays, I feel like Brees can keep going. Just like he relies on his accuracy, not really his arm strength. So he can, and he makes quick passes. He's so quick in releasing the ball. So I think that Brees can still keep going pretty well for the next 2 or 3 years. So I definitely like Brees. I love his supporting cast. The offensive line is great. Michael Thomas, as always, going to be one of the top receivers in the NFL. Alvin Kamara was banged up like Barkley last year, so Kamara is going to have a better year. So I like the Saints a lot. I think they have one of the best rosters in the NFL. Wouldn't surprise me if they won the Super Bowl, but that would require them not to get screwed against the Vikings in the playoffs. So we'll see if that happens. So my number 8 is Aaron Rodgers. I just don't like the Packers this year. I really don't. And Rodgers has a dubious health history. So I'm concerned that about him staying on the field. So I worry about that. I hate that the Packers didn't upgrade the receiving core at all. They were expected to. They didn't. They drafted Jordan Love instead, and they drafted a third string running back in the second round. Just horrible moves this offseason for the Packers. So Rodgers has the potential to be great. It's just it doesn't seem like the Packers want him to be great. It seems like they want to move on to Jordan Love. So I'd like him this year, but not enough to have him inside in the top 7.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is a little higher on my list. He's my number 6.
Okay. So who's your 7 then?
My number 7, I'm a homer, is Mr. Carson Wentz. And I love Carson Wentz this year. I don't think people realize that the Eagles last year were the 3rd best team in the red zone in the NFL last year. And they were the 4th best team in the NFL on third downs. Carson Wentz still threw for, 27 touchdowns. And I think he had you playing receiver for 2 games. I think your sister was in there for a few games. The team was riddled in injuries, lots of inconsistencies and problems. And the stats were still there for Carson Wentz to be a viable fantasy starter. They have upgraded the wide receiver core. Even if the receiver core isn't great, it is significantly better than it was a year ago. And their defense is going to be better. I think potentially puts them in better situations. There were so many bad spots for the Eagles over and over and over again last year with a bunch of bums. And so I just think Carson Wentz is as good as anybody. And I think he's going to be the 7th best fantasy quarterback in 2019 or 2020.
Well, you're a homer with Wentz, but I have him higher. So what does that say about me? All right, so we have some overlap here. I have Breeze at 7, as discussed earlier. You have Rodgers at 6, as you said. Anything on Rodgers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching I've watched the first 7 weeks of last year. The guy has just still got it, man. Even when he's not the player he was, 8 or 9 years ago, of course. But the guy, I mean, if we were having a conversation as to who's just pure, like the best quarterback in the NFL, not fantasy perspective, just who you'd still have, man, I tell you, Rodgers is in the conversation. It's Mahomes number 1, obviously, but Rodgers is in the conversation, man. Like I think people are underestimating how good this guy is sometimes, which is actually kind of infuriating because watching him play early in the year, how good he was at certain spots, he's actually really inconsistent down the stretch. As I'm remembering, as I'll rewatch the season, maybe I'll have a different opinion. But as I'm thinking back to how the second half of the year played out, he was really terribly inconsistent, which is really annoying and really frustrating. And they didn't upgrade the offensive weapons at all, right? There's nothing better on that team. So it's hard to think that he's going to be able to replicate, being a top 3 quarterback ever again. But I just love the arm strength is still there. He's so good. And I wondered, this is his last year in Green Bay. Does he just have is he just like in kind of that, screw you mood? Does he have that, kind of like the I hate the world, the way Tom Brady did, was that 2017 or 2016 when Brady was suspended for 4 games and still just lit the world on fire or whatever, or when he was supposed to be suspended, but he didn't get suspended. That whole, I wonder if he comes out like the angry Tom. Do we get the angry A-Rod theory this year?
We could. Then again, we've seen him lose a game on purpose against Arizona. So maybe he'll try to get the coaching staff fired. I don't know. I do like that theory, though. I think that could definitely happen. It's just that he doesn't have any receivers at all, except for Devontae Adams. The Geronimo Allison is still going to be his number 2 receiver, which is just not ideal, in the slightest. All right, my number 6 is Kyler Murray. I suspect he's obviously going to be higher on your list. Yeah. I love Kyler Murray. Everything about him. He's going to run a lot. He ran so much last year. He's going to get the rushing yardage. And with DeAndre Hopkins, his receiving core is very good. The one concern I have with Murray is that his tackles always get injured. You have DJ Humphries, left tackle, Marcus Gilbert, right tackle. Those guys are always banged up. And if both go down, Arizona's offense is not going to be as effective as people think it will be. So if you were to tell me right now that both guys will stay healthy the whole year, I would have Murray in my top 5 for sure. I just worry about that because we saw last year, he had some great flashes for sure, but he struggled in some games where the defensive line overwhelmed his offensive line. If you want to go back and rewatch the Seattle game from earlier in the year, that's exactly what happened in that game. Jadeveon Clowney just dominated, and Murray couldn't really do anything. If his 2 tackles go down this year and Josh Jones, the 3rd-round rookie, is not ready to play, that's going to happen a lot. So I'm just worried about that. Just worried about the offensive line. I like Daniel Jones' offensive line better for sure. But still, Murray's going to be higher because just because of his rushing potential.
Yeah, I think he's there. He's my number 4. Should I talk about him now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Everything you said is right. If I knew everyone was 100% going to be healthy on that squad, he might be in my top 3, maybe even higher. Maybe top 2 kind of deal. Man, he is really good. I think he's really underrated. He doesn't have the size. He's not as elusive or as quick as some of the other guys are, but he's just a really, really smart player. I don't think he has the same elusiveness of a Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson or even Carson Wentz. I think he's a slight behind those guys. But gosh, he's a really smart player. He's really savvy. I was watching the game against Detroit early in the year, from 2019 season, and there are so many moments where he's under pressure or the defense is throwing a unique blitz at him, and he reads it really quickly and he gets the ball away. He doesn't take unnecessary hits. And I'm watching Daniel Jones have some of the same things early in the year, really struggling. And so it's just wow, Kyler Murray's I think he's better than people think or people realize in some ways. I think he's got some natural limitations. There are some throws, the arm strength is limited. It's weird when he's throwing across his body or off his back foot. He doesn't have the ability to kind of improvise in some ways the way the other guys do, but he's really smart. He doesn't put the ball up for grabs necessarily. I really like him as a player. I'm watching him play and I go, he may end up becoming one of my favorite players. I like him a lot. He's a fun player to watch. And then how can you not love the fact they added one of the best receivers, arguably the best receiver in the game? I mean, the fact that the Houston Texans made that trade, I still can't believe it. Like, it's unbelievable that they made that trade because DeAndre Hopkins is so good. So I think the Cardinals are going to be a fun team to watch this year.
Yeah, they'll be fun for sure. Like I said, I just worry about the offensive line. So, all right. Yeah. So we have your 10 through 6 and 4. So who's your number 5?
My number 5 is Lamar Jackson.
Wow.
And I'm actually nervous that I have him this high, if I'm honest, because I just don't think you can be able to replicate what he did. You can't possibly replicate that. And I think this team, I mean, they just drafted, they spent a second round pick on a running back I really like in Dobbins. I would imagine they're going to want to be a run first team and keep him out of harm's way. And they got good second year receivers and they spent some draft capital on receivers. I think this team's going to want to throw the ball high percentage passes more often. And so I just can't imagine he runs as much as he did last year. In addition to that, if he does run as much as he did last year, I can't imagine he stays healthy. I just can't. So to me, either he runs less than he did last year, which means his numbers are going to be down, or he runs as much early in the year and eventually gets hurt and he misses 3 or 4 games or more. So I just cannot see a situation where he finishes in the top 4. And I'm actually nervous having a number 5 because I'm really nervous he's going to get injured. I just can't imagine a quarterback running and playing with his style and not suffering major injury. For his sake and for Ravens fans' sake, I hope they adjust his game a little bit.
Yeah, so to add more fuel to that fire, the Ravens also lost Marshall Yanda this offseason. And Yanda to retirement. Yanda is probably going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. And Yanda was such a good guard for the Ravens that, I think a big reason Jackson had such a great year in his second season was because of their offensive line. Like, they blocked so well for him. And I think he's going to struggle more this year. And I do think that you're right. Like, he has a high chance of getting injured. That's kind of why I would avoid him. But that said, I have him higher than you do. He's my number 2 quarterback for fantasy this year. His rushing upside is just through the roof. I mean, he was like among the league leaders in rushing yards last year. And there's actually in Vegas, like you can bet, or not in Vegas, any sports book, you can bet on who's going to lead the league in rushing this year. And like Lamar Jackson is listed among the players.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. And like his rushing ability is just like too good to pass up for me. Well, I shouldn't say too good to pass up because he's going to be taken in the first or early second round. So he's not going to be on any of my fantasy rosters at all, unless he really falls to the third round or something. But I just think that, he'll improve as a passer for sure because he works very hard. That's something I think is important that some people miss is like he really works hard on upgrading his passing. Like, that's something Robert Griffin didn't do, and we saw Griffin get injured, not run as much or not run as effectively, and then he just kind of bottomed out and lost his ability to start because he didn't work as hard. But Jackson does, and I think that's important. So I do like Jackson this year, but I agree that I think he might take a step back, and he's a big injury risk.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. As you mentioned, though, neither one of us are going to end up with this guy because neither one of us are going to draft quarterbacks, before at any point in the first half of the drafts in most scenarios.
Or at any point in the draft. We'll discuss that in a little bit. All right, my number 5 is Carson Wentz. So
nice.
Yeah, I love Carson Wentz this year. I mean, the Eagles added to his receiving core, not as they should have. Like, they should have traded up for CeeDee Lamb. But that's that you check out that video elsewhere. So I do like the Jalen Reagor pick. I think he'll help a lot. I like the third day receivers they drafted. But Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson sound like they'll be back. They're healthy at the moment. So we'll see if that continues, but they're still there. They still have the 2-star tight ends. And they have a very good offensive line. We'll see if Andre Dillard improves, but Dillard struggled last year, but that was kind of expected. Like he entered the league raw, and I think in his second year, I think he could really improve. So Wentz was just amazing down the stretch last year, considering he had nothing to work with. Like his top receiver was Greg Ward late in the year, which is just crazy. Now he's going to have all these guys back. He's going to have Brager as an upside guy, as a downfield threat. Remember that first game where he just threw a couple bombs at Deshaun Jackson? Like I feel like with a dynamic downfield threat, which he didn't have last year, I think Wentz has that upside to have like huge games like most weeks against teams that don't have elite secondary. So I definitely like Wentz a lot.
Yeah, and Wentz likes to throw the ball down the field. Like the Doug Peterson offense, it's West Coast based concepts and West Coast based terminology, but it's not West Coast based philosophy. Like overall, like their philosophy is throw the ball down the field, throw the ball, be aggressive early in the game. Like that's what they want to be. And Carson Wentz loves it. He hates, you can tell he hates throwing the ball, checking it down. Sometimes it drives me crazy as an Eagles fan. Just sometimes you just got to take what defense gives you. But he loves throwing the ball down the field. And if he has a deep threat, the guy's going to have a lot of downfield touchdowns. And so I think Carson Wentz's potential is higher. His potential is also lower. I mean, as range of outcomes go, he may have a wider range of outcomes than some of these other guys because the Eagles' offensive line could get old. The Eagles' receivers could be injured or bust. Like a lot could go wrong, and so I think the range of outcomes is wide.
Yeah, for sure. A lot could go wrong, but a lot went wrong last year, and Wentz is still like pretty good. You know what I mean? So I feel like it won't be as bad this year. All right, so your number 4 is Murray, so I'll get to my number 4, and that is Deshaun Watson. So I love Watson. We both love Deshaun Watson. Like we're like the president and vice president of his fan club. The problem is DeAndre Hopkins is gone, and like they still have good receivers. Like they Will Fuller, Kenny Stills. They signed Randall Cobb. We'll see if he does well. I worry about his supporting cast a little bit. Like Will Fuller can't stay healthy, so if he goes down, he's throwing to Stills and Cobb. Like doesn't sound great. His offensive line still is not good because Bill O'Brien doesn't know how to upgrade the offensive line. His running backs David Johnson, and there is potential there if Johnson can stay healthy, but he's like basically a walking injury report. So he could go down very easily, very early in the year, and then it's like if Johnson and Fuller get injured, it's like who does Deshaun Watson have to work with? It's pretty bleak in Houston. Bill O'Brien's still an idiot, but Watson is so good that he's still in the top 4 for me.
Yeah, I have him higher than number 4.
Well, obviously, we know you're 10 through 4, so he's either 1, 2, or 3. So who's number 3?
My number 3 is Russell Wilson. You said we're the president, vice president of the Deshaun Watson fan club. Well, we're definitely in the Russell Wilson fan club too. I'm definitely a president of the fan club. I'm definitely a groupie of the Russell Wilson tour, worldwide tour. I mean, I Russell Wilson. Again, I'm watching through the 2019 season. I just think this guy is unbelievably overrated. The offensive line has been bad for several years in a row. They were worse in 2019. They even were in 2018, which I didn't think that was possible. I thought they were potentially the worst offensive line in the NFL in 2018, the way they played, or the bottom 3. They maybe were worse in 2019. And this guy is he's a freaking magician. He's Houdini. Like the things he does. And it's not just like the escapability he has. A lot of guys have that, but he knows precisely when to check. His audibles are great. I don't even know why they call plays. Just let him call just get to the line of scrimmage and let him call the play. Kind of like Chip Kelly obviously was a dope in the NFL, but one of the things that Chip Kelly used to do that I think Russell Wilson would really be great in was if they let him just like run high tempo and call his own plays or do a lot of the post snap read stuff. He's so good at it. It feels like they micromanage that offense. And if not for that, he's so good. And so any list I'm making, Russell Wilson, to me, he always has a potential to throw 30 touchdowns. He has a potential to run for 5 or 6 touchdowns. He's got the potential to throw for 4,000 yards. If that offensive line is even mediocre and not terrible, he could be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. Like that's how good Russell Wilson is in my mind. If the offensive line is just mediocre, not even good, if you're just mediocre, this guy will be potentially the number one fantasy quarterback in the NFL. I don't anticipate they'll be mediocre. I'll anticipate they'll be in the bottom third, which is why he's number 3 on my list.
Yeah, he's number 3 on my list as well. I don't expect the offensive line to be mediocre. It's going to be bad again. I don't see why. It could be even worse. Like they lost some linemen this offseason. Like no one great. Like they still have Dwayne Brown there, but still, it's pretty painful to watch. Like it really sucks. Like imagine if Seattle just had a great offensive line all these years. Like I'm actually taking your advice. I'm going to write a what if NFL book, like just straight what ifs. And my plan, I think, is to have a chapter for each team. And I think my what if for Seattle is what if Seattle had a great offensive line throughout Russell Wilson's career? They would win. They would be in Super Bowl contention every single season, right? Like
they would be like the way the Patriots have been the last 20 years. They'd be in that category.
Yeah, like it's amazing that they reach the playoffs each season, and it's only because of Wilson. Like if Wilson were to go down one of these years, and if he were to miss let's just say he got injured in the preseason and he missed all of 2020. The Seahawks would win 2 games or 3 games. They would be that bad. Like they would be in the running for Trevor Lawrence, and obviously they trade the pick. So it's really disappointing. But Russell Wilson's that great, and plus DK Metcalf's going to take a big step forward, I think, this year. Metcalf was much better than expected as a rookie, and I'm rewatching the season like you. Like Metcalf has looked great in some games. He's going to be even better. So I love Wilson as well. All right. So
I got a question for you about the offensive line. Like how it just feels criminal to me that a front office is not able to get this right. Like what could they have done? Or is it just like a matter of like, it's just that hard to build an offensive line?
Well, they've spent resources on linemen. Like they traded for Dwayne Brown. They drafted Jermaine Ifedi in the first round. They spent other resources on linemen. They haven't panned out. And like Seattle has I think Seattle's a good front office. Like they've gotten some great picks late in the draft. Like Richard Sherman, obviously one of the primary examples. They still have the same guys there who drafted Richard Sherman. There have been other sleepers as well. The problem is that they just can't get the offensive line correct. Like, I don't know if like they need better scouts for offensive linemen or something. That's been kind of like their Achilles heel. I think it's kind of like Bill Belichick with receivers. Like the Patriots make great moves. They just get bad receivers for some reason, except for Randy Moss, Wes Welker, and Edelman. But like they drafted N'Keal Harry in the first round. They traded for Philip Dorsett. Like they can't, the Patriots can't get receivers correct. And it's the same thing with the Seahawks and offensive linemen. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's just so odd like, watching them and just being like, it's like every single play, it feels like there are defenders in the backfield. I mean, fast, quick, like I'm watching him like, this has got to be a joke, right? You watch a regular game and you think to yourself, this must be a highlight reel of like opposing defenses. There's like, it's like every single play he's under pressure. I can't think of a play where he drops back the pass and he has a clean pocket and he can make a throw down the field. And if I'm a Seahawks fan, it's infuriating.
Yeah, I agree. I don't understand how they haven't been able to fix this for so long. Maybe one day they will. Probably not though. All right. All right. So we have 10 through 3 here. We still have Mahomes and Watson left. So who's number 2?
Number 2 is Deshaun Watson. I love Deshaun Watson. And you already talked about him. I think this guy is underrated. He's so good, man. He's just good. He has the capability. I think he can do almost everything that like a Wilson and Mahomes can do. He's in the same category in my mind. He can do all those types of things. He doesn't use it as much though. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like the early 2000s McNabb. I remember Donovan was so good out of the pocket, so good when he was using his legs. Like the year that Donovan McNabb finished second in MVP voting behind Marshall Faulk, like McNabb threw like he rushed for 600 yards that year, and then like the next year he ran for like 272 yards. He just didn't want to run. And like Deshaun Watson has like the same thing. I mean, I don't know for sure. Obviously, I've never talked to him about it. I did meet him once in the elevator a couple years ago. Right. I had a 10-second conversation with him. He just has this sense of like, I don't know. When I watch him play, it's like if he doesn't want to run. Like there are moments the pocket breaks down, The offensive line there has been bad as well. Not as bad as Seattle, but pretty bad. There are times where he's under pressure, the offensive line breaks down, and he seems to have a lane to take off, and he doesn't do it. It's like he wants to stay in the pocket and take the hit. And he takes a lot of hits unnecessarily. So that makes me nervous. So my thinking is maybe without DeAndre Hopkins this year, who knows what happens with Brandon Cooks. Maybe he's healthy and he's great. Hard to say. Hard to know what David Johnson's going to do, as you said. But my thought is Deshaun Watson, you just got to put the team on your back, bro. Like, the pocket breaks down, just move around and get the heck out of there. And do what you can do. Go run for 600 yards. I have a feeling, I don't have any inside sources. I have a feeling that he's going to do more of that because I think he's going to have to. Like, I don't think he's going to have the option to just throw it up to Hopkins, obviously. Like, he's not going to have the option to just throw it up to a guy and he's going to come down. Like, I think he's going to have to take more of it. So I think we see more running and maybe even more red zone yards or red zone touchdowns from him, which I think potentially gives him a slight boost. He's another guy like Russell Wilson that I just feel bad for him because if he had a better system, at least Russell Wilson has a smart coach. Watson, you feel bad for, but the guy's electric. He's got everything you want. He's phenomenal. He's number 2 on my list.
It's a good thought about him running more with Hopkins gone. I think that could definitely happen. Although, I think you're right to be concerned about him getting injured as a result of that. I completely forgot the Texans got Brandon Cooks. As kind of like that just says a lot about Brandon Cooks, and I mean he's one head injury away from just being done for his career.
Sad.
Yeah, it is, and like he's been a disappointment wherever he's gone. Like he just doesn't fit well in the locker room. Like doesn't seem like anyone likes him. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's going to make that much of an impact in Houston. We'll see though. My number 2 is Lamar Jackson. So we are kind of discussed him already. So unless like I'm clearly off here, number 1 is Mahomes for you, right?
No, I already thought I told you Nick Foles.
Oh, okay. Nick Foles. Let me make that change.
Of course. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes. He's maybe the greatest quarterback I've ever watched in my life.
Agreed. So with that in mind, where would you draft Mahomes? I want to look at his ADP real quick. I believe his ADP is early in the second round, and we kind of discussed that that we wouldn't have these quarterbacks. So I'm looking at his ADP. His ADP is 207 according to a fantasy football calculator. So where, like, let's just say no one takes Mahomes in our league. Where would you draft him?
In a standard league, not PPR. In a typical 12-team type league. To me, I don't want to be taking the onesie positions at quarterback, tight end, obviously defense or kicker. But anything where you're only starting one of those guys, I'm not drafting anyone before round 6. Like round 6, like to me, like I'm not drafting anyone in the top 70 or 80 picks because I love Mahomes. He's phenomenal. I mean, I just said it. He might be the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. He does things no one can do. It's unbelievable. I mean, I watched the first 7 weeks last year, and you're just like, the guy is unreal. He can make every throw like it's nothing. Just flick of the wrist. He can throw the hard. He's got touch. He's got power. He's got accuracy. He's so smart, so quick. But I just, no matter what that is, I just can't see myself drafting a quarterback because it's so easy to replace those numbers later in the draft or off the waiver wire. I mean, the quarterback position in the NFL, 4,000 yards, like mediocre quarterbacks. I mean, Matthew Stafford is not even in my top 17. Matthew Stafford might throw for 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns this year. In the mid-90s, that would have made him the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. Yep. Right, and maybe even in the early 2000s, that would have made him worth a first-round pick. In 2001, if you told me I have a quarterback who's definitely going to throw 4,000 yards and definitely going to throw 27 touchdowns, I'm like, well, I'm definitely drafting him in the first round. Like that's like now 4,000 yards and 27 touchdowns is like, oh, I can get that. I can get that off the scrap heap. Like, who cares? Like, that's irrelevant now. So it's just, I find it too hard to spend anything. 6th round to me is like the absolute earliest. And quite frankly, I probably wouldn't go that high.
Wow. So if you're in the 5th round and hypothetically Mahomes is there, you're not drafting him in the 5th round?
I don't know. Like I said, I depends on how the board falls. Maybe it's highly, highly unlikely for me to be taking him in that spot. I mean, I guess here's the reason why. If you're in a 12-team league, if of the other guys, there are going to be several guys that have made some really bad picks along the way, which means there's some really good talent that'll be there still in the 5th round. Now, if every single guy, if I'm in a 12-team league and the other 11 guys are literally every single guy are making just like they're drafting exactly the way they ought to. No one's making stupid bonehead picks. No one's selecting, no one has taken a quarterback yet. No one has drafted a defense. God forbid. Oh gosh. Right. Like, like there's only 1 or 2 tight ends off the board. Like if that's the case, okay, then maybe there's a spot. That just seems so unlikely. Like it only takes 1 or 2 stupid guys in a league for a talent to drop where it just makes it so unlikely for a quarterback to be worthy of being drafted at that spot.
It only takes one guy to draft Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense first overall. You gotta
tell the story. If anyone doesn't know, you gotta quickly tell the story.
It's in my book, by the way, and we don't have a sponsor, so I'll sponsor myself. A safety and a field goal. I just happen to have it right here. It's in my book. I have top 5 fantasy football, funniest fantasy football stories. I have a chapter in that book, and in one of the leagues, the first time I was ever in a league with you, this guy, I had the 2nd pick. This guy had the 1st pick. I expected him to take Marshall Faulk, and I didn't know who I was going to take 2nd. And he was on the clock, and it took forever for him to make this decision. I didn't know why. I was like, you're not going to take Marshall Faulk? And he goes, I'll take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense first overall. We were just silent, like no one knew what was happening. We're like, wait, is he joking? Like, what is happening? And the commissioner is like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, defenses win championships. And I'm like, I'll take Marshall Faulk. And like commissioner's like, wait, hold on. We can't have this. And he kind of explained to him, he's like, you can get Tampa Bay defense in like the 7th round or 8th round. And he's like, oh, really? I'm like, and he's like, I was like, yeah, okay. And the commissioner says, yeah, okay. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to get Marshall Faulk. And he like looks at me and he goes, I'll take Marshall Faulk. I'm like my draft's over. Like I didn't know. Like I was so tilted. I didn't know who I was picking next. Like I just had a horrible fantasy draft. That was back in like 2000. So
good. You gotta love it.
Yeah. So anyway, it sucks. I won't be able to hold you to not taking Mahomes in the 5th round of our league because as we know, someone will draft Mahomes in the 1st round, and we both know who that is. So
yeah, you go. Funny thing is, Mahomes before he had his breakout year, someone in our league drafted him in the 4th round, and we were just all shocked. And you and I both liked Mahomes a lot, and his ADP I think was like 8th round, I think, or 9th round.
I loved him that year. He was my number 1 sleeper, and I drafted him in so many leagues, but I didn't expect 4th round.
Yeah, and so we were all completely, and it's like, I remember later in the year, the guy in our league was talking trash, like, oh, you guys didn't know, you guys mocked me when I drafted Mahomes. Like, I still mock you, even with 50 touchdowns, I still wouldn't have drafted him in the 4th round. Like, I don't care. Like, it's like, so, yeah, I love Mahomes. He's great. He's so fun to watch. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, to me, it's highly unlikely, and most of the leagues I'm in are PPR or half-point PPR. Which makes quarterbacks even less valuable. They make up a lower percentage of your points scored on your team any given week. And so, and if you have a bigger roster or a bigger starting lineups, like in our league, there's 9 starters week to week. Well, quarterback's 1 of 9, so he makes a higher percentage. But in most of my leagues, we have a flex or multiple. Most of my leagues, like it's 10 or 11 starters. So the quarterback position is less. I am in an auction league that's 2 quarterbacks. Obviously, Mahomes will be at the top of the list. I mean, in that league, if it's obviously not a draft, it's an auction. But if it was a draft, he would potentially be the number 1 overall pick in a 2 quarterback league, just because the using value-based drafting principles, it makes the most sense to do that. But in a league like ours, it's highly unlikely I'm taking a quarterback probably before round 9.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it really depends on your scoring system. Like if you have 2 quarterbacks, obviously you're going to take these guys early. If your scoring system is weird, where your quarterbacks score way more points than they should compared to other leagues, then you should bump them up. obviously. Or if you start two running backs, 2 receivers, no flex, quarterback should be valued higher. But if you start a flex or a third receiver like we do, then you should bump down the quarterbacks accordingly. I'm right there with you. I'm not going to draft a quarterback early, maybe not at all. I mean, I told the story like a million times, but I won our league last year using my 3 starters in the fantasy playoffs were Eli Manning, and Daniel Jones. And like it worked out because I drafted Cam Newton. He got injured. Starting week 3, I had to go every single week. I just picked up a new quarterback who had the best matchup. And I just wrote it to a championship. And I think you can do that with the position. And it's a lot easier to do that compared to running backs and receivers because, like you said, now like quarterbacks can throw for 4,000 yards and 27 touchdowns and within a blink of an eye. And if you have a quarterback in a great matchup, he can be one of the top scorers that week. I had Daniel Jones against Lamar Jackson in the championship, and Daniel Jones outscored Lamar Jackson because he was playing the Redskins. I believe it's the Redskins. Maybe it's another bad team, but like still, it just goes to show that you can get these quarterbacks late. In our first fantasy mock draft, which you can find on this channel, I drafted Jared Goff in the 13th round because he plays Dallas in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea. I think it's great. I love the idea of just rotating quarterbacks. I've actually kind of been loosely tracking it. And basically what I've been trying to do is, as we're watching through the 2019 season, there's a couple things I want to figure out is, if you had just taken quarterbacks. So my threshold is quarterbacks available in at least 25% of Yahoo leagues and 25% of ESPN leagues. That's kind of guys are going to be available or on the way, or sorry, guys only owned in 25% or 25%, like their ownership. And so my current stats right now show that if you had just gotten a free agent quarterback off the waiver wire every week, you would have collectively through the first 7 weeks of the season, you would have the 7th best quarterback overall. So that's kind of I have quarterback number 7 taking a quarterback off the waiver wire every week collectively. So we'll see what that, I don't know if that'll maintain that good throughout the whole season, but we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely, I think you can definitely do that. So I'm gonna publish like an article later on in the summer, kind of talking about which week 1 quarterbacks you can draft, just like in the 13th, 14th round or something. Like Jared Goff is an example. He plays Dallas. Dallas's defense is not very good. They have an explosive offense, so like that game could be like 34-31, and Jared Goff could throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then you could dump him in week 2 and just pick up someone else. So I think that's definitely possible. Or you could even trade him. You could trade him to someone who's like, oh, wow, Jared Goff's good this year. And just trade him and get something else. So I think that's possible. All right. Did you want to talk about anything else regarding quarterbacks? Like maybe not even fantasy related?
Yeah, I just think generally, if we were going to make a list of fantasy versus real life, of the top 16 or 17 quarterbacks, it would be pretty much the same guys, but they just be in some cases a slightly different order. I think the guy that would be way higher on my list, obviously, is Tom Brady. I mean, as a real life quarterback, he's still one of the best because he's just so smart and so accurate, and the guy's just a fierce competitor. I mean, I can't wait till the documentary of this guy comes out. Everyone's talking about the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, which I'm sure is great. I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure it's awesome, but everyone keeps talking about what a great competitor Michael Jordan was. Tom Brady's that same kind of guy, right? And you're right. The angry Tom theory has been helpful. So I think he's way up on my list. I think Lamar Jackson is further down on my list. I think Lamar Jackson. I hate feel like I'm dogging on him because he seems like such a good guy too. But like he's not nearly as good a passer as some of these guys. Like Carson Wentz and like even Josh Allen, I think are better passers than Lamar Jackson. And so I think Carson Wentz is actually a significantly better passer than Lamar Jackson. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. I think Jimmy G is actually a really smart quarterback. He's got a really, really good release. But he's in a system that's never going to allow him to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback, right? Like in real life, Jimmy G would be way higher on my list. But I don't think he would be I don't think he ever makes my top 10 fantasy thing. So I think there's some guys that are better fantasy and not as good real life, a la Jameis Winston. And there's some guys that are way better in real life than they are in fantasy, which like Tom Brady. And really, Tom Brady's been like that for almost his whole career. I mean, with the exception of just a few seasons, like, he's been way better in real life than he's been in fantasy for a long time. And so I think we have that. I think Baker Mayfield is the kind of guy that may end up being better fantasy than he is in real life. Like, I think he may end up being a total turd in real life.
We'll see with Mayfield. I think he could bounce back a little bit this year. Odell Beckham was never really healthy last year. Their offensive line was bad. Their line is a lot better now. So I think there's a lot going for the Browns, but then again, they are the Browns. So we'll see what happens with them. You said I'm not a big fan of Garoppolo. Like, it seems like he holds the ball for too long sometimes. That gets him into a lot of trouble. And in the Super Bowl, he really came up short. Like, all he needed to do was just score one touchdown against the Chiefs. And like, I feel like the 49ers would have been able to hold on. And he just couldn't move the ball at all against like a Chiefs defense that's like was good last year. Like they improved down the stretch, but it wasn't like great. It wasn't like he wasn't playing the 85 Bears or anything, you know. So I think that
that defense is pretty mediocre for a lot of the season.
Yeah, no, they got better. The problem was for most of the year, Chris Jones was out for several games. They got Terrell Suggs late in the year. That helped. I feel like Tyrann Mathieu got better as the year progressed. Their cornerbacks, I think, improved a little bit. So their defense definitely got better in the second half of the year. It just wasn't great. Like I said, it wasn't great. I agree. Tom Brady would be higher. Look, obviously Mahomes would be number one, I think, for me. But between Wilson and Brady, like, who would you have number two, or Watson?
Oh man, I love Watson. I got such a man crush on him. But I got to go. Can I go Russell to Watson tied and then Brady? I don't know. I don't know. Like if I say like Mahomes, Watson, Wilson, Brady, like I think that would be my top four real life. Maybe flip flop Wilson, Watson.
Yeah, I would go Wilson. I would go Wilson 2, Watson 3. It's close. We haven't seen Watson without Hopkins, right? For a long stretch. So we'll see. I'd
say Rodgers 5 and Wentz 6. I know people don't like that, but that's what I really think.
I think that's fair. I like that too. Breeze will be up there for me too. I know you're not as high on Breeze anymore, but I still love Drew Brees. I don't know where else I would go. Lamar Jackson obviously would be in the top 10. He wouldn't be number 2 or anything like in fantasy. I agree. I think, like I said before, he'll be better this year because he works hard. But I wonder with Marshall Yanda leaving if that's going to make things more difficult for him.
Yeah. I also think, by the way, I think Jared Goff is actually like worse than like he's in the bottom third. I think 10 years from now, we're going to look back at the Wentz versus Goff comparisons because they were drafted 1-2. I think people are going to look back and say that was a disaster that the Rams traded up for Goff instead of taking Wentz or standing pat and drafting Dak Prescott. Like, I think Dak has proven that he should have been much higher than a 4th round pick.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. I think Goff's a pretty pedestrian quarterback. Like he has a great arm and everything, but his football IQ is just so low. Like his pocket presence is awful. And the reason why he was so successful in 2017 and 2018 is because he had a great offensive line. And we saw last year when they lost Roger Saffold and their center, their line got so bad and Goff just couldn't really do anything. Like he really had some struggles, and the Rams didn't improve their offensive line this offseason. So I think he's going to have another rough year. But I do love him week 1 though. I think he's going to have a big week 1 against Dallas. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you one other question about someone we haven't talked about at all yet. I want to get your thoughts on.
Okay, sure. What is it?
What happens to Cam Newton, and under what scenario does he become fantasy relevant? Or what scenario does he end up in our top 10?
I think Cam Newton's kind of biding his time to see if someone gets injured, kind of like with Teddy Bridgewater a few years ago when he went down and then the Vikings had to trade for Sam Bradford. I think he's waiting for a quarterback to get injured. And I think it's more likely to happen this year because players aren't practicing as much with each other. Like they may not be working out, like their workout regimen might have changed because of the pandemic. So I think there's a good chance that one of the quarterbacks goes down. Like imagine if the Steelers lose Ben Roethlisberger again, like I feel like they're definitely going to try to get Cam Newton. Or if I don't know if Baker Mayfield gets injured, like the Browns, I think would try to get Cam Newton. some other teams. I don't know, like Houston, for example. We talked about Deshaun Watson having a higher chance of getting injured. If he gets injured like week 3, week 4, and Cam Newton's still like out there, I feel like they'll just sign him, right? So I think that's what Cam Newton is doing right now, just waiting.
Yeah, we've seen it happen multiple times. Obviously, Teddy Bridgewater, the Vikings sold themselves as contender, so they went out and grossly overpaid for Bradford. Obviously in 2017, when Carson Wentz, the league MVP at the time, gets injured, and if a guy like Cam Newton was out there, they probably would have. That would have been a right move. There wasn't a guy out there, and they had the best quarterback of all time, Nick Foles, already in the wings. So they didn't have to go after anyone. But you're right. That sort of scenario where a team is great and not and what if the Falcons are just off to like they're on fire and they're great and Ryan's having a great year, but then in week 13 Ryan gets injured, he's out for the year, and Cam Newton is still out there. Like, it's possible that he never signs, and I don't think it'll take that long, but if that kind of scenario could happen, then that makes Cam Newton a realistic option.
So we have a comment here, Redskins for Cam. I don't think the Redskins will sign Cam Newton unless Dwayne Haskins either gets injured or is just unbelievably terrible in the preseason, assuming we have a preseason. I think they love Haskins. Like, they want to give him a chance. Daniel Snyder's a big Haskins fan. So I don't see them signing Cam unless one of those two things happen. We had some other questions and comments to get over. So someone's asking me, how do you put Berkeley over McCaffrey? Berkeley, I think is going to be running behind a better offensive line. He's going to be healthier this year. Like, don't judge Berkeley on what happened last year. He had 8 weeks last year where he wasn't healthy, and I just think he has more upside. McCaffrey, he had such a big workload last year that I think the Panthers might scale it a little bit down, like not a lot, but just maybe a little bit. And the Panthers might be out of contention late in the year just because they have a new roster, new coaching staff. I feel like they're going to have a bad record. So week 15, week 16, week 17, they might just not give McCaffrey the ball that much because they just want to preserve him for next year. So thoughts on that?
I have who is this? Sakai Waffle? Sorry, Sakai Waffle. I'm going to answer your question very simply. How do I put Barkley over McCaffrey? Because I have eyeballs and I've watched both of them play. And Saquon Barkley is an unbelievable talent that we've never seen ever at the running back position. Maybe going back to some of the old school guys like the Jim Brown, that era kind of guys, or the Walter Payton. Like, he's those guys in today's athlete. Like, we've never in modern football. Adrian Peterson is the closest we've seen to it. Saquon Barkley is better than Adrian Peterson. He just is. Like, that's why. So, there's a lot of reasons why he may not end up as a number 1 fantasy running back, but he's so good he could break all the records. And with that realistic chance in mind, I want him on my roster over McCaffrey.
Yeah, with a better offensive line too. Like, he has that chance. If he never got injured last year in week 3 against Tampa, and if he just if he is healthy 100% the whole year, like his numbers would have been unbelievable. So definitely don't judge it on last year. All right, we have another comment, question. Any off-season non-NFL podcast in the future? Thanks as always. So we always talk about Game of Thrones in the past. Obviously that's off the air, and I don't know when or if a spinoff is coming, but any thoughts on having a non-NFL podcast?
I mean, we've done our favorite TV shows, and I've gone back and I've watched some of the shows you recommended, primarily Lost, because you had Lost as your top. So I've gone through all of Lost. Lost definitely makes my top 10 now. I gotta go back and re-rank and see where actually I would put Lost in my top 10. Maybe my top 5. I'd have to think about that. I don't know. I'm up for anything. Maybe movies is a potential. Maybe we'd have to maybe we get some fodder from the fans and see if there's a topic that would be a great option.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I don't know what shows you're watching now. If there's like a new hit show that we're both watching, like maybe we can discuss that.
Just finished watching Defending Jacob. The last episode came out last night. 8-episode miniseries. It's fantastic.
I never saw it, but I'll have to check it out. That's the problem. Is like a lot of the new shows are like 6 episodes and that's it.
Yeah.
there's a show on Amazon. It's called like Upload. I thought that was pretty good. But we'll have to discuss it offline.
Right.
We'll discuss it via text and I'm definitely up for a non-NFL podcast this summer because we're gonna have all of June and July before we get to more fantasy in August. All right, there's a couple of this guy Derek says bullish on the Giants. LOL. Obviously, you're laughing at all the money you're going to be making by betting the Giants over. So congratulations in advance. Jay Hudge says, "Don't sleep on Funches." I'll sleep on Funches. Any thoughts?
No, I will actually. Sorry, bro.
Any thoughts on Funches here?
No offense, Jay Hudge. I just seems kind of like a random Funches. Like I don't. Yeah.
Well, he's with the Packers, so we're discussing the Packer receivers. When I was we were talking about that, but like Funches missed all of last year. I thought when Funches came out of Michigan, I thought he should have played tight end. I thought he should have moved to tight end. He can't separate. Like that's his problem.
Yeah.
So he's just not a good receiver.
Hard to be successful in the NFL if you can't separate from the defenders.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's the problem N'Keal Harry is having right now in New England. So that's an issue for me, and that's why I hated the T. Higgins pick so much for Cincinnati at number 33. It's going to be the same issue. You can't separate. All right. And this last comment for $50 Walt, your picks are great. Thanks a lot. You guys rock. So thanks so much for saying that. That means a lot. Doesn't actually say that. You can watch the YouTube video if you're listening. You can watch the YouTube video to see what that really says. All right. Anything else before we sign off?
No, that's it. Hey, I live in Minneapolis, and so obviously a lot of craziness going on. So if you're the praying type, pray for my city. If you're the thinking type, think about our city, and just make. I hate to sound silly or sound trite, but really hug and love your people you love. Hold them tight, give them a kiss. Life is precious.
I will say this though, you're doing some great charity work with the city of Minnesota, so that's awesome. It's really cool to hear that.
Thank you.
Hopefully everything improves. I don't know what more needs to be said. All right, anything to plug at all?
No, that's it. My hope is that I would have watched the entire 2019 season in the next few weeks. I've been tracking what should have been interceptions, tracking quarterback and tight end waiver wire pickups. Trying to cover some things that maybe are not typical out there. So try to be helpful to the folks. I'm a man of the people, Walt.
I would love to see. I want to see that list of should have been interceptions. I want to see what Jameis Winston's final tally would be.
It's so bad. Only 7 weeks in, it's so bad.
I have a feeling it's gonna be like 45 should have been interceptions. We'll see. All right. I'm at walterfootball.com. We're gonna have season previews starting on Tuesday, so I check those out for sure. Actually, one last comment here. What's the change in game dynamics once it resumes? I don't think anything's really gonna change. I think what's really going to happen this year is that teams that are like brand new coaching staffs and a lot of roster overhaul, they're going to have a lot of problems early in the year because they're not practicing as often. The teams that have most of the roster and coaching staff returning, they're going to have a huge edge this year. And that's why I think like the Chiefs have a great chance to repeat. So, all right. So that's the last question there. Like I said, walterfootball.com, lots of fantasy content, season previews starting. I'm at Walter Football on Twitter, so you can follow me there. And please hit subscribe. That would mean a lot to us. So, Kenny, I'll talk to you later.
You the man, Walt.
All right, bye.